So are you Pete's Donuts or Tim Hortons? These are two businesses, exactly same industry, serving the exact same product, right across the streets from each other, and yet dramatically different. So today we're going to talk about those differences and which one are you. Hi, I'm Chris Reynolds, and I'm on a mission to help independent financial advisors build a better business through a remarkable client experience. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to do that from my conversations with the visionaries, the leaders, the independent advisors who are reshaping the future of the financial advice industry. At the end of each episode, you're going to walk away with an actionable idea that you can take and use right now, and it will help you to build a better business today. This is Turning the Page. In today's podcast, I want to talk about the different types of businesses there are out there and which one best suits you. There are small proprietary family businesses and large corporations and everything in between. So what kind of business do you want to build? One that just gives you income or something that can give you time freedom as well? One that works on systems and processes, or one that revolves around you and maybe your family? One that has real value, or one that just fades away when you do? The choice is yours. And as an entrepreneur, you can pick the type of business that you want to build. So what are the different businesses? And I thought I have a great story that I like to use to illustrate the contrast between different businesses, even if they're in the exact same industry, serving the exact same thing. So the story that I use, I've used this for years, is I have a little farm that I go to that is north of Toronto. And over the years, I drive up and I go past two business models operating in real time. So there are two coffee donut shops literally across the street from each other as you drive up to the farm. And one is called Pete's Donuts, and the other is a Tim Hortons franchise. And I think we're pretty familiar with who Tim Hortons franchise is. But now let's talk about Pete's Donuts, because it's right across the street and it's competing 1-to-1 against Tim Hortons. Now, Pete's Donuts, is operated by a guy coincidentally named Pete. Now, Pete gets up every morning at about 4:30 a.m. and him and his daughters go down to the basement of Pete Donuts and they make donuts for the day. So all the donuts are freshly made by Pete and his daughters. And while they're making the donuts, Pete's wife is getting the store ready for opening. Store opens every day at 6:30 a.m., and is open up until 8 p.m. And during that time, Pete and his family serve their customers all day long. They make the donuts, they come back up, they serve the donuts. The wife does all the bookkeeping, the daughters clean the place. But, Pete's a pretty good guy. He's well known for his awesome donuts. He has great coffee. They are very friendly with their regular customers, and they have a great reputation in the neighborhood. But what's the challenge? It's a great business. He probably does all right. But the challenge for Pete is that he and his family are the business, the whole business. Right? If they're not there to make the donuts, make the coffee, serve the clients, take care of every single detail necessary to run the business, there is no business. They are literally the business. When Pete and his family want to go on vacation or take on any extended periods of time off, the store is shut down. And then when Pete wants to retire, the best that he can hope for is one of his kids take over the business. There's not really much of a chance that somebody wants to come in and get up at 4:30 in the morning, make donuts, and work until 8 o'clock at night. So in other words, the equity value is not really that important to Pete and his family. Now, as contrast to that business model, there's another business model, and it's right across the street. And that is a Tim Hortons franchise. Now, this franchise is probably owned by a dentist. It's probably never even been in. That franchise has a manager, and each of the staff have a very specific set of processes that were designed by the franchisor to deliver coffee and donuts all day long. As I said, the dentist may or may not have to be there to run it because the business runs itself. No interference by the dentist. They don't have to be there. In fact, that dentist could own 5 or 6 Tim Hortons franchises each producing a profit that he gets for himself. The dentist can take as much time as he wants off. He can leave, he can travel, he can be with his family, or he can just sit at home and watch TV. But every year, that business produces money for him and his family. He knows that he can take the time off because he knows all the processes are already taking place. He doesn't have to make the donuts. The donuts are all automated. The coffee is all automated. It shows up at his door once a week with all the supplies. The processes are put in place so that he can literally hire high school kids to come in and run all the processes on behalf of the franchise and produce a profit. He also knows that not only is this business very profitable, it's very easy for somebody else to own. So in other words, if that dentist at some future point didn't want to own that Tim Hortons, and by the way, they can own it forever because it will continue to produce cash. But if he didn't, there's a ready secondary market for this business because it is so easy. Like I could buy it and I don't know anything about donuts other than how to eat them. I could buy that and I could know that I will buy it for a percentage of cash flow or a multiple of cash flow. And, within a few years, I will have that paid off and I will have a profit going into my pocket each and every year. This makes it a very attractive asset to be purchased to fund the dentist's retirement. So my question to you is, are you Pete? Are you the dentist? Because in other words, does your business need your presence, your input, your decision-making to operate successfully? In my experience, the bulk of the people who get into business are Pete. I see Pete's, I meet Pete's every single day. They have a business, but that business only operates when they're the ones operating it. The business would have a very hard time surviving should the principal take any period of time off when to sell that asset in the future. What our goal is as entrepreneurs is to build a Tim Hortons, is to build a business that can operate in your absence, right? That you have the right processes in place to deliver an outstanding client experience over and over to a set customer base who knows you exist, who knows your brand, who knows how you operate. It can be duplicated over and over. It has leverage, it has scale, and it has a value at the end. So the question always is, when I'm talking to advisors, how do I become Tim Hortons? Well, there's a few steps. Tim Hortons is a pretty simple business. They know what business they're in, and they know what problems they solve, which is convenience, getting a coffee, donut on their way. But they also need a potential client base that can support the business indefinitely. And I think Tim Hortons has done that. So look at your own. But the more important thing that they have is they have defined processes that deliver that solution over and over and over again, but more importantly, delivered over and over and over again by anyone. They can hire anyone, anywhere, any province, any city, and the thing will run. So then they need that team, and you need that team to run the processes. And then as you're running the processes, you're constantly learning and improving upon them. And finally, you need scalability. As I said, you need a big enough audience or potential audience for your product, but you also need a way to reach them and create that scalability. And that's what Pete doesn't have, is that scalability. He's only as good as him and his family, making donuts and serving coffee, whereas a business can run off scalability and they can serve people right across Canada. And so then the goal is, as a business owner, you want to be the least important asset in the business. And a lot of people want to make themselves the most important business. But that's, I think, incorrect. You want to be backing away and have the thing run itself. And that provides what really we all want, which is true freedom. If your business continually revolves around you and your ability to deliver whatever it is, service or investing or whatever it is you do, then that is a very difficult business for someone else to take over. If it is built around a philosophy that is easy to duplicate and processes which are easy for people to operate, that business is extremely valuable. So what you have to ask yourself as an entrepreneur and as a business owner is, what business do I want to build? Do I want to be Pete and Pete's Donuts? Or do I want to be Tim Hortons and be the dentist that operates a Tim Hortons franchise? And unfortunately, as a footnote to this story, during the pandemic, Pete actually had to shut down his shop. And so now as I drive by, I no longer see a Pete's Donuts across the street from a Tim Hortons, but guess who opened up to compete directly with Tim Hortons in this particular location? Is actually Starbucks has now opened a location, and you've heard me talk about Starbucks in other podcasts. So in conclusion, do you want to be Pete or do you want to be Tim Hortons? So what kind of business do you want to build? I would love to talk to you about the business you have today, but where do you want to go? Do you want to be Pete or do you want to be a Tim Hortons franchise? And if you want to talk about it, I love talking about this stuff. It's one of the things that really excites me. So just go to the show notes, click on the link, and we can set up a virtual coffee. So I look forward to talking with you. Thanks for joining me on Turning the Page. What did you learn from today's episode? If you follow me on LinkedIn, please drop me a comment there. I'd love to chat with you about it over virtual coffee. Send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can do so at our website. The link's in the show notes. I'm Chris Reynolds, and until next time.